The three sea lions here, and he's going to do a little bit of showing off to begin with, but later on he'll disappear and we'll bring out our oldest sea lion. He's called Marvin. Our third member of the gang, Merlin, is having a break in the corner pool at the moment. They all get a chance to do that throughout the course of the day, have a little break on their own away from the others, a chance to relax. He was out on stage at 12 o'clock, so now having a well-earned break. You might see him out on stage the next time you visit us here. But we're going to concentrate on Matteo and Marvin today. All three of the sea lions here are the same species. They're California sea lions. They were all bred in different zoos, but they're normally found along the west coastline of America. You see these animals as far north as Canada, as far south as the Gulf of Mexico, but the biggest population, that's along the California coast, hence the name. They breed very successfully in zoos. We have actually bred them here in the past many years ago. We may do again one day in the future, but at the moment we've no plans to breed them. We've only got the three boys here. And the main reason for this is they're not an endangered species. If they were, we'd promote breeding here at the zoo. But in the wild at the moment, there's an estimated population of around 315,000, so they're currently not classed as endangered or threatened. And the other thing is, they breed so successfully, you can end up overrun with baby sea lions if you're not careful. That's why we've just got three males here at the current time. Now, Matteo joined us from Dublin Zoo when he was a pup. He was 18 months old when he arrived. He's now 5 years old, so he's settled in well here. And he may live to be 25, possibly even 30. These animals can live to 25, sometimes 30 in a zoo like this. In the wild, the maximum lifespan is 15 to 20 years. And sadly, it's rare that they live to that age in the wild. Here in the zoo, we can treat them when they get ill. We have great vets who can help us to look after the animals. They also have no competition for food here. And here there aren't any predators. In the wild, every time they enter the water, they face creatures like killer whales trying to eat them. They actually spend most of their life on land, because out on dry land they have no natural predators. But they have to go into the water to find food. They feed on fish, squid, eel and octopus. And competition for that food in the wild is becoming more and more fierce. As fish stocks become depleted, the sea lions are having to work harder and travel further to find the food they need. Here in a zoo though, finding food is not a problem. But they can get bored. That is a problem. Here in a zoo like this, if we leave them to just swim around and throw them fish now and again, they're happy to do that for a week or two, maybe even a month or two, but eventually they start getting bored. So here, we keep them very active. We keep them busy by training them different things. All the training is based on positive reinforcement, just rewarding the animal whenever they do anything well. That encourages the behaviour. He should give you all a wave. If you all stick an arm in the air, give him a wave, he should wave back. That's what we like to see. Look at that, give him all a wave. There's a little bit of cue. Yes, he learned to wave when he was just a pup. It doesn't take long to train something like that. He also likes clapping. And believe it or not, every time you clap, you're helping me to train this sea lion. So if you see him clapping, you've got the right idea. Join him, give him a little round of applause. It gives him that bit of encouragement. Now, sea lions are marine mammals. They feed on fish, squid, eel and octopus, but fish makes up most of that diet. They are well formed for life in the water, but as we said, they actually spend the majority of their life on land, this species of sea lion, because on land they are safe. Here in the zoo, they don't have to worry about predators, they don't have to worry about finding food, they don't have to worry about much. So giving them different things to do is important, just keep them stimulated. The first thing they learn to do is this, it's called targeting. We've got a stick with a yellow spot on the end. And we train the sea lions to just follow the yellow spot around with their nose, like this. Wherever I move that stick, which we call a target, he keeps his nose on the yellow spot. It's easy to train. You just reward them every time they touch it. So the first time their nose goes anywhere near the yellow spot, you give them a pat on the back and give them a piece of fish. And that encourages them to put their nose back on the spot to get another pat on the back and another piece of fish. You only have to reward them a few times for just touching the spot, and they'll start to follow it like this. After a few days of practice, they'll follow it anywhere. So the target becomes like a lead. And if I want that to follow me anywhere, if I want him to move from pool to pool, or if I just want him to stand still, I can use the target. He keeps his nose on the yellow spot. Really, really useful in the early days of training. And you can train lots of animals to do this. Dogs, dolphins, if you've got the time and the patience, you can train your dog to do this quite easily. Dogs and sea lions are very, very similar. Quite closely related. They've got a similar level of intelligence. So training a sea lion, just like training your dog at home, it's all about rewarding them with either food or attention, or both. If you give them a pat on the back, if you say, well done, good boy, that encourages them. Giving them a piece of fish encourages the animal. And if you use both together, you get the best results. Now, if I put the target on the floor, come back up here, please. If I put the target on the floor, he should lay down next to it. Like that. Good boy. Nice and relaxed. Now, when he's relaxed like this, we can examine him all over the body. We can do a quick body check from nose to tail. He's not worried, he's not anxious. And because we've done this with him every day since he was a pup, he'll now let the vet do this too. So when the vet pays a visit, he's trained to lay here, nice and still. The vet can stand where I'm standing and examine him. And he's also learned to roll over, like that. So we can check his stomach too. And this is the first thing we train them all to do. It's very simple, very basic, but it makes a visit from the vet less stressful for everyone. Well done, Matt. He's also trained to open his mouth. When I do this, he does that. He opens his mouth. He keeps his mouth open so we can check his teeth, his tongue, and the back of his throat. This is known as cooperative health care. And it's really important training. It just makes a visit from the vet less stressful. If the animals are not trained at all, they have to be trapped in a small cage so a vet can get close to them. So just teach them to do all this just makes that visit from the vet a lot easier. Now they are actually furry. They look smooth, slippery when they're wet, but they're actually covered by fur coats. When they're wet, the fur sticks tight to them, making them more streamlined in the water. When they dry off, they go all fluffy, and it does them no harm at all to dry off. Around the neck area, the male or bull sea lions, not the females, only the males, develop a slight mane around their neck. The fur around the neck is slightly thicker than the fur on the rest of the body, and that's the reason for the name sea lion. They're often confused with seals. Now, the animals you see around the coast here in Britain are seals, not sea lions, and they are slightly different. They're members of the same family, a family group called pinnipeds, which includes walruses too, and some awkward animals called fur seals, which we'll get to in a minute. People tend to recognise a walrus when they see one, but people always get confused between sea lions and seals. One way to tell them apart is to look at their ears. If you look closely on the side of Matteo's head, just where I'm pointing there, you can see little ears that stick out from the side of the head. All species of sea lion have these ear flaps, but seals, true seals, don't. A seal's ear is just a little hole on the side of its head. So if the ears stick out, it's a sea lion. Simple as that. Sea lions, they have big front flippers. Very big, very powerful. They grow roughly to the length of a human arm. Look at the size of these front flippers. They're very, very big. If he was a seal, his front flipper would be a lot smaller. When fully grown, a seal's front flipper is about the size of my hand. So you can see there a massive size difference. And that's because the two animals swim differently. Sea lions, they use the big front flippers to sweep their body through the water. Seals instead swim using the back flippers by moving them from side to side. That's why their front flippers are not so big. Seals only use the front flippers for steering. Sea lions steer using the back flippers. And watch how he walks. He walks with his flippers like this. He can run, he can jump, he can climb. He can use all four flippers to walk about. Using the back flippers, tucking them underneath the body, that lifts the whole body off the ground, so sea lions can walk on all four flippers. A seal can't do that. Now, we don't have any seals here, but Matteo does a good impression of one. If you see a seal on the beach here in Britain, they move kind of like this. They sort of bounce along on their belly, rather like a giant caterpillar. They can't stand up like a sea lion. They have to bounce along by moving their spine in a wave-like motion. And that, everyone, is how you tell seals from sea lions. It's easy, really. Good impression of Matteo. Well done to you. Yes, that's how you tell a sea lion from a seal. Look at the flippers, look at the ears, watch how they move in the water, watch how they move on land. You can tell which is which. But there are some awkward animals called fur seals. Now, fur seals aren't actually seals. A fur seal is actually more closely related to a sea lion, but that's where it all starts to get really confusing, so we'll move on. We've got some hoops up here. Now, giving the animals different toys to play with is one way of keeping them occupied and preventing them from getting bored. But you've got to be careful, because anything that fits in the mouth can be a choking hazard, as it can with a young child. So we've got to be really careful what toys we give the animals. If it fits in the mouth, it can prove fatal. But these hoops are a good toy. When he was a little pup, he just played with them in the water. But he soon got bored of doing that. So one day, we taught him to do this. We threw the hoops in the pool, and we waited for him to bring one back. We had to wait a while the first time we did this. But now when I throw the 5 hoops in the pool, he gathers all 5 up, brings all 5 back to me. If you take your dog for a walk in the park and throw them a ball or a toy, the dog will chase what you throw. When they bring it back, give them a reward, give them a treat, you train them to retrieve. And I'm sure many of you out there have done just that. There you go. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of you out there that have trained your dog to retrieve a ball or a toy in the park. All it takes is a little pat on the back when they bring the ball back. You train your animal to retrieve. Easy. Now, once he'd learned to do that, we started practicing catching the hoops. Now, this takes a lot more skill and a lot more practice. When I throw the hoops to Matteo, he's got to stretch out his long neck to catch them over his head. Are you ready? He's good at this now, but he wasn't at first. No sea lions are good at catching like this at first. They're naturally good at catching because they've got binocular vision. 2 eyes that face forward, like you and me, so they can judge distance and speed. But they're used to catching fish in the mouth. Catching the hoops over the head, that's a bit different. They've got to learn to keep their mouth closed first of all. But once they've learned to do that, they become pretty good at this. And if he gets all 5, give him a clap. Well caught, Matteo. That's good catching. Very good catching. But can we do it again, and can we make it a bit harder? The answer is yes, hopefully. We're going to flip the hoops this time. When we flip them, he's got to adjust his head at the last second to make a catch. So this is much more difficult. It takes a lot more skill and a lot more practice to catch like this. Are you ready, Matteo? Watch the hoops carefully. Now, if he misses a hoop, it doesn't matter. The training is all about rewarding them for doing well. If they make a mistake, we don't care. If he misses a hoop, it doesn't matter to us. And he does miss them occasionally. This is hard. He's not had much practice at catching like this. But the more we practice, the more his skills improve. He keeps getting better and better at this every time he puts in the practice. If he gets 5 out of 5, he's done really well. That's brilliant. Well done, man. That is excellent catching. And on that note, this little fella is going to leave us now. He's going to go and relax in the other pool for a few minutes so we can introduce you to Marvin. Marvin and Matteo get on quite well together, but they're also highly competitive and they both like to be the centre of attention, which is why he's got to leave the stage for a few minutes now so we can bring out Marvin. Give him a little clap as he disappears. He has done very, very well. Good performance from Matteo. Well, let me tell you about Marvin. Marvin was born in Whipsnade Wild Animal Park. He joined us here when he was 18 months old. And I've been working with him since that first day. He's now 23 years of age. In the wild, as we said, they live a maximum of 15 to 20 years. And sadly, 40 to 60% born in the wild don't make it past the age of 2. There is a high infant mortality rate. That's down to predators, it's down to lack of food, it's down to pollution, overfishing. But here in a zoo, where those things are not such a problem, this extends the lifespan. So at the age of 23, he's still pretty fit, pretty healthy. His eyesight isn't quite as good as it once was, but still pretty good. He's still got all his teeth, which is incredible. Now, sadly, in the wild, when they lose their front teeth, they can't survive. They can't survive in the wild without their front teeth because they can't catch and hold on to fish. When the front teeth fall out, that's the end of the road for a California sea lion, because finding and catching food is difficult without those teeth. But they can actually survive in the wild if they go blind, one of the rare mammals that can. We'll explain how in a minute or two. Now, Marvin's trained to open his mouth so he can check his teeth. Just like Matteo, he will open his mouth on a simple signal. I just touch him on the chin. He opens his mouth like that. Say, thank you. He blows his nose too. When I touch him on the nose, he does this. He blows his nose every time. And that's trained so we can take a mucus sample. They can suffer from lung infections and infections in the nose and throat. Respiratory infections are quite common, but they can be quite serious. If you teach them to do that, you can take a sample of what comes out, you can send it to the lab, you can test it. If there are any nasty bugs or bacteria in there, we can treat the animal with the correct medication. That's why we teach them all to blow their nose. When they're relaxed, their nostrils close tight shut. And that's very clever. That stops water going up their nose when they're swimming about. They actually have to open their nostrils each time they inhale or exhale. Now, we've mentioned one predator that sea lions face. That's the killer whale, a fellow marine mammal. Marvin does a good impression of the other predator they face, which is a fish. the shark. Now, we've got to be more precise. Most sharks don't eat sea lions, and they don't eat serpents. Most sharks are actually harmless. They've got a bad reputation, sharks, but most of them perfectly harmless to us and to sea lions like Marvin. But there are three that do prey on these animals. They are tiger sharks, bull sharks, and the notorious great white sharks. They all feed on sea lions like this, if they can catch them. So what would you do, Marvin, if you spotted a shark or a killer whale? Leg it, yes, head for dry land. These animals stay close to the beach when hunting to avoid those predators. Yeah, most of the time when hunting for food, they try to stay close to the shore. And then if a killer whale or a shark approaches, they can race for dry land where they're safe from those predators. But they sometimes have to venture far out into the ocean. That's when they're vulnerable. When they go far out into the Pacific Ocean, they can't swim as fast as a shark or a killer whale. So the only way they can avoid them, they can't race for dry land, there'll only be one winner, it's not the sea lion. They instead twist and turn, they rely on their flexibility. They might not be as fast as a shark or a killer whale, but they have an incredibly flexible spine, so they can sometimes outmaneuver them. Now, if you look around the nose, they've got long, bristly whiskers. The whiskers are an important feature in the wild. The whiskers are very sensitive. Each one of them has a very strong nerve at the base, and that makes these whiskers more sensitive by far than our fingertips. They can use them when it's dark or murky in the ocean. They can use them to find fish. When a fish swims, it moves its tail from side to side. That creates little waves in the water. The whiskers can detect these wave patterns, and by following them quickly in the right direction, it gives them food. So that's how they hunt when they can't see, and it's thanks to the whiskers that they can survive even if they go blind. So as we said earlier, they can't survive without their front teeth, but they can survive without their vision. Here in the zoo, we're not allowed to put live fish in the food. It's not permitted. So here they can't use their whiskers in the same way they naturally use them. But this is how we've got Marvin using his whiskers. Ball balancing. Something sea lions are famous for. Now this is nothing to do with eyesight. He can do this with his eyes shut. He's learned to balance the ball on his nose by learning to use his whiskers to feel which way it's moving. When that ball moves in any direction, it's pressing on his very sensitive whiskers, and he is reacting by moving his nose slightly. It took him a few months to learn how to do this. It took our other sea lion Merlin a few years to learn how to balance. They're all different. People often ask me, how long does it take to train a sea lion? And you can't answer that question because they all learn at different speeds, they all have different skills, and no two are the same. Like us humans, they've all got different learning abilities, so we just work at their pace. Matteo has been practicing this for 4 years now and he can't do it. He drops the ball every time. But that doesn't matter because it's keeping him occupied trying. The fact is he might never learn to do it. Some of them don't ever get the idea, but they all have the ability. Marvin, after years and years of practice, makes it look easy. He can keep his head fairly still and the ball hardly seems to move. But he is actually moving his nose all the time, just slightly, depending on the feelings he's getting from his whiskers. Good balance that, Marvin. Well done to you, my friend. Very good. But we can make it much more difficult by swapping the object he's got to balance. He can balance this on his nose. We've got a bowling pin. Now, compared to a basketball, this is a lot harder to balance because of its shape. It's only touching a few of those whiskers. So he's got to react the moment that skittle moves slightly to keep it on his nose. And when you've got fish bills, so it's much appreciated. The bonus is if you buy a poster for a £5, you get to pose for a photo with Matteo. Anyone that buys a poster for a £5, you can stand in front of Matteo, take some photos with him stood behind you. It is £5 per person, you do have to take your own photos, I will mention that. But if you like a picture, and if your cameras are waterproof, head out through that gate over there at the side of the pool after the show. Now Marvin's going to try the ball jump. This is a physical challenge. To do this, he's got to use all the strength in his front flippers. And doing this with him every day helps to keep him fit. Helps to keep those muscles in the chest and shoulders strong and powerful. He is aiming for that ball hanging above the pool up there. He's going to try and touch that ball with his nose. Now to jump that high takes a lot of effort. He weighs 20 stone or thereabouts, about 125 kilos. So to jump that high takes a lot of effort. And if he hits it, he deserves a big, big cheer. Now when you drop a 20-stone sea lion from a height like that, you can get a bit of a splash. Now I know you're already probably pretty wet, but it can get very wet on the front row over that side, guys. So if you are in that area, you can make a splash. We have to warn you, and that was your one. Right then, Marvin, are you ready? Let's see if you can hit that ball. Are you feeling confident, Marvin? You are, good. He's going to give it his best shot. Let's give him a countdown from 3 to 1. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Here he comes like a rocket! Brilliant jump and a brilliant way to end today's show. Thank you for that, Marvin. That was fantastic. And that just leaves me to say thank you all so much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you all have a brilliant time here at Flamingo Land. From Marvin, Matteo and me, bye-bye. Have a very happy new year. Thank you. Bye for now.